welcome to the Transatlantic Sports Show. Welcome back. It's great to be back with you. I'm your host, Anthony Wootton. You can follow me on social media at ARWootton, WOOTTON, on X, at Anthony_R_Wootton on Instagram. But follow us, the Transatlantic Sports Show, across social platforms. It's far easier for you to follow and find as well. That is at TASS_UK on Instagram, YouTube, and on X. Great to be back with you. It's been a while. I appreciate that. And thank you for your patience. And thank you for sticking around as well. Look, we are hopefully going to be here for the long run for you. That is the plan. We've been busy over the NFL season. You will have heard me on BBC 5 Live presenting the NFL coverage. And just because it's been such a busy period of time, we haven't been able to bring you the Transatlantic Sports Show. But we wanted to change that and deliver you good quality content week after week here right through the offseason and into the new NFL season and the upcoming MLB season as well. Can you smell that? That's the Cracker Jacks and peanuts and the hot dogs getting ready. We are not far from the start of the MLB season, but for now, we are getting excited about the NFL. It is a league that never stops, does it? You know, we're a week into free agency, just over that now at time of recording. And in this episode of the Transatlantic Sports Show, we are dedicating ourselves to one of the teams that are heading over to London later this year, and that is the Washington Commanders, one of the most storied franchises in the whole of the NFL. 5 times NFL champions. That's 2 back before the Super Bowl era NFL titles and 3 Super Bowls. They haven't won a Super Bowl since 1991. But is this a time to get excited about the Commanders with Jaden Daniels as their quarterback? We're going to look back at the history of the Washington football team, the former Redskins, of course, this Commanders franchise. And who better to look back with than one of my fellow members of the Pro Football Researchers Association. He is a journalist named Mike Richman, and he is working on an encyclopedia. This is how far his knowledge of the Washington Commanders goes. He is writing the official encyclopedia of the Washington Pro Football Club. Yes, he is going way back. This is a franchise that goes back to the 1930s, started in Boston, but don't let me tell you about it. Mike is here to inform you, educate you on Washington football and pro football in Washington. So enough from me, right? Let's get to the show. Let's get to the guest, the bread and butter. This is why you're here. You want to learn about the Washington Commanders, this Washington football club. So let's join now and hear from our guest, Mike Richman. And delighted to say, joining me now is a top sports journalist, Washington football author. I mean, he's got the Washington Pro Football Encyclopedia coming out in August. That gives you an idea of how much this man knows about the Washington Commanders or the Washington football team or the Washington Redskins, but pro football in Washington. Mike Richman is your man, and he joins us now. Mike, delighted to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you very much for inviting me on. Very happy to be here and to educate your audience about American football and the Washington football team, Washington Redskins. And by the way, they had to be referred to in the book as the Washington Redskins for nearly their first 90 years of existence because you can't refer to them any other way. So the logo and name were retired just before the team hit 90 years old. So you had to. It's going to be called the Washington Pro Football Encyclopedia : Redskins and Commanders.
Excellent stuff, and look, I can't wait to delve into that, and also wait for that to come out later this year in August. We'll talk about that fantastic encyclopedia in due course. But Mike, let's just talk about you and your connections to the Washington Football Club, pro football in Washington, because you are a man who knows so much about Washington and the Redskins, etc. But where did it all start for you?
It started right here in the D.C. area. I'm a native Washingtonian, and when George Allen came here to coach in 1971, the legendary George Allen, I was 10 years old, and I just became hooked on that team. Interestingly, the Baltimore Colts were a very good team at that time, and they won Super Bowl V in the 1970 season. So I followed the Colts closely, and I admired many of their players, including Johnny Unitas. But when the Redskins became good that year in '71, I just became hooked. I would have these huge emotional swings based on how well they did on any given Sunday, and that's how I became a big Redskins fan. And coincidentally, I chose journalism, writing as a passion of mine as early as elementary school, and that has just continued throughout my life. And now I put together these 5 books: the Redskins Encyclopedia, as you mentioned, the Washington Redskins Football Vault, Joe Gibbs' Enduring Legacy, and George Allen Football Life. Now, the Washington Pro Football Encyclopedia, which will be an update of my Redskins Encyclopedia, which came out in 2007. So very excited about all of this work, and you could call it prolific.
Absolutely. Look, and it's great, isn't it, that you were 10 years old? I think, that is an age where, isn't it, where you are captured by a fan. That's where fandom really digs deep. I've got a son who's just turned 12, and he's found Chelsea as his football club over here, and all of a sudden you can see the passion building. He's now got Chelsea bedding, Chelsea pajamas. All he wears is Chelsea when he's not at school, and it just strikes you. There's something about that age, isn't it, where sports, you suddenly, it clicks, you get it, and that's it. You are hooked for life.
Well, I had sort of an advantage because my father was a huge sports fan, and he was a great high school football player at Thomas Jefferson in New York City, and a two-way player back then. And so he really got me acclimated to the game. I went to a few games in the 60s when Sonny Jurgensen was the great passer at that time. I don't remember too much from back then, but like I said, when George Allen came here in '71, I mean, I had all of the elements of being a great sports fan and a great Redskins fan inside of me at the time, and it kind of just exploded at that point.
Absolutely fantastic. Look, we're going to delve deeper into the football club and educate people. So, because look, I think it's very, very special that we've got such a storied franchise coming over here as the home team as well at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What a stadium, by the way, Mike, for the Commanders going to have for their home game later this year. More details of that matchup, when it's going to be, who their opponents are going to be. We're going to talk about some of the rumored opponents a little bit later in this program as well, so stick around for that. But, I mean, it's just fantastic that we've got Washington coming over. I know they've been to London before in a regular NFL game over here, but they were the road team against the Bengals back in 2016, so 10 years ago. And that was the first ever tie. It went to overtime and finished a 27-all tie. We had Kirk Cousins over with the Redskins, it was then, against the Cincinnati Bengals at Wembley Stadium. This is a whole new stadium, but this Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is going to be a delight for Washington. I give you that, Mike.
Right. Well, first of all, I hope the game this time around, this coming season, is much more exciting than that 2016 game. That was just so boring and so tedious of a game. But so I hope it is very exciting, and I hope they do get a matchup against one of their NFC East rivals, particularly the Eagles. I know that has been rumored to happen, so that would be a great game. But in terms of the new stadium coming on in 2030, I mean, we're all very excited about that. It's going to be at the same location where RFK Stadium was for many years. So you have that nostalgic aspect to it, and it's going to revitalize that whole area of Washington, D.C. There's going to be a major shopping complex there, and apartment buildings and business offices as well. So it's going to be a whole big revitalization of that whole area in Southeast D.C. We're very excited about it.
I bet. I got the train out there a couple of years ago. I went out to Six Flags America, so we got the train out to Landover. So the train went over that part of the waterway there, and you could see the old stadium there. And just looking at the plans and what they've got, what they're hoping to build or planning to build there, not even hoping, but what they are planning to build there is exciting. And some of these new stadiums that are being built as well are just phenomenal, aren't they? You look at Tottenham over here, but the Buffalo Bills, it looks like they've mirrored almost their new stadium to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We've got SoFi, and so many amazing NFL stadiums will be on show later this year for the World Cup. But this is about the Washington Commanders. And you mentioned it there, one of the rumored teams teams now. This is pure speculation, but one of the teams rumored to be the opponents of the Washington Commanders is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Mike, I can't use the term storied enough when it comes to Washington football, pro football, and the Commanders. But when you go back through history, of course, the Washington Redskins began life as the Boston Braves back in 1932. 1933 became the Boston Redskins and then moved to Washington in 37. But, I mean, this rivalry between Washington and the Eagles goes way back. And, you know, if you want to talk about quintessential NFL fandom and rivalries, I think you look no further than that NFC East and the teams that are in there, especially the Giants, Washington, and Philadelphia, because these are franchises, like I say, that go way back, and there's a lot of history connected there. And we could be in for a real treat if it is indeed the Eagles that are coming over.
Right. Well, the Eagles, I have to admit, they've had the edge over us in recent decades. They've just been a consistently winning team, which you have to admire. But the rivalry in particular goes back to 1933. As you said, the Braves came into existence in 32, became the Redskins in 33. Well, it was that particular year that the Eagles came into existence. They were two of the original NFL franchises. So because of the proximity and also because of playing in the Eastern Division and later the NFC East and battling each other so often, they have become fierce rivals. And that would be a major treat if they did play in London again this coming season. But I have to also say that, well, the Cowboys for many years were our most hated team. I think the Eagles have really caught up. I mean, I personally do not like the Eagles largely because of their fan base. It's just a really obnoxious fan base. I don't know if you've ever been to an Eagles game, but there's just something, there's like an insecurity about Eagles fans. I don't know what it is. And if they don't win a Super Bowl, then they are very, very angry. I don't know if you heard the incident that happened a few years ago when the Eagles lost a playoff game. So an Eagles fan is walking out of the stadium. He punched a police horse in the nose and he broke his hand. Gladly, the fan was arrested. I don't know if they. I mean, if they treated
what comes
his hand
of a man where you're going to be punching a police horse in the nose? Only in Philly, right? That's it.
Only in Philly. My license plate was once broken in half in Philly. I parked in the media lot, and right across the way, fans could tailgate, and they saw my license plate, which at the time said Skin 75,
right.
in recognition of my Redskins Encyclopedia, which came out in the 75th anniversary of the team. So that was the game that the Redskins clinched the NFC East in 2015. So I walk out after the game. My license plate is bent. I didn't do anything about it, but I was able to fix it. I'm just trying to paint a picture of the fierceness of these Eagles fans.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, when you talk about rivalries, they got big rivals in that North London derby against Arsenal. They've got a bit of hatred to West Ham just down the way there as well. So I think we're going to be ready for it and well prepared for whatever comes our way. If it is the Eagles and the Commanders squaring off at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I must stress this is pure speculation. It's just some rumors that we've seen out there. We're not saying that it is a dead cert that it is the Eagles and Commanders that are playing in London later this year, but it just gives you an idea of what we could look forward to if it is that matchup. And really, this now we can step back to the history of pro football in Washington. You do have your encyclopedia coming out later this year, but talk to us about some of the greats that have graced the field for the Washington pro football in Washington way back when with the Redskins. Sammy Baugh, that great quarterback of years gone by, right up through to modern times. This is a franchise that is steeped in history and has had some great players and some fantastic coaches. I know you've written a book about one of these great coaches as well.
Yes. Well, of course, Sammy Baugh. And interestingly about Sammy Baugh, and I don't consider what you said in calling him a quarterback was not a mistake in any way. He was a quarterback. First, he started in the single wing, and then he became a true quarterback in 1946 or after World War II. But he was also a great defensive back. He had many, I think 31 interceptions in his career. He was a great punter. And his record of 51.4 yards, a single season punting average, still holds as the NFL record today. I would call him the greatest multi-dimensional player in Redskins history or Washington football history. The greatest pure passer, in my opinion, was Sonny Jurgensen, who lit the skies in the 1960s. He was just so prolific with his passing, leading the league in passing yardage and attempts and completions year after year in the 60s. And he had some great players, too, who are in the Hall of Fame today: Bobby Mitchell, Charlie Taylor. Then you look in more recent years, in the 80s, John Riggins pulled off the greatest play in Redskins history, that 43-yard touchdown run in Super Bowl 17. I consider that the greatest single play in team history. You had Joe Theismann then. Art Monk was a great player back then. Darryl Green. So they've had quite a few iconic names who are today in the Hall of Fame, grace this wonderful franchise.
Yeah, and look, there's five league championships that this franchise has won. There's two NFL championships back in 37 and in 42, and then the three Super Bowls, 17, 22, and Super Bowl 26. So that most recent Super Bowl success for the franchise is back in 1991, that Super Bowl 26 title success. So why do you think that they've struggled to get to the big games since then in 1991? This is now we are officially in the 2026 season, so it's a long time. What's that, 25, 35 years?
They have one of the longest droughts in NFL history in terms of last winning a Super Bowl. There are, I believe, 20 teams in the NFL that have won at least one Super Bowl. They have one of the longest droughts among those 20 teams to have last won a Vince Lombardi trophy. So it's been a while. There's been the stretch of mediocrity. You could attribute it to various circumstances. At first, they didn't know how to handle free agency. The modern era of free agency started right after Joe Gibbs left for the first time after the 92 season. They didn't know how to handle that. They've had some coaches, average coaches, Norv Turner, and then when Dan Snyder took over, actually Dan Snyder's best season owning the team was his very first season, 1999. They went to the second round of the playoffs that year and nearly went to the NFC Championship game against the greatest show on turf, the St. Louis Rams. Unfortunately, they didn't make it, but that was his best team. But then in the ensuing years, it was just a stretch of mediocrity, coaching carousel, trying to sign one single player to turn the franchise around, like an Albert Hainsworth or Adam Archuleta. Signing all those high-priced free agents, Deion Sanders, Bruce Smith, thinking they were going to turn the team around. So that was one thing that, those free agents who backfired, that definitely set the team back. There were other, coaches. Mike Shanahan, he wasn't the Mike Shanahan who coached the Denver Broncos. Now, some of the things that have happened were at Snyder's fault. I mean, the death of Sean Taylor. He was a player who was going to, quarterbacks were afraid to throw in his direction. He was that type of a player. He would change the whole complexion of a game. So they lost him. He was shot and murdered, and that was not Snyder's fault in any way. What happened to RG3? That was very unfortunate. He had a phenomenal rookie season, very similar to what Jaden Daniels had. Jaden Daniels actually exceeded his numbers in 2024. But coaches, not getting the right chemistry on the team. It's very, very hard to win a Super Bowl. You need so many elements to come into place, such as that chemistry, the coaching. You need the right coaching. You need the coach to be communicating with his players the right way, to be sending the right messages. Things need to really work out on that end. And it just hasn't happened for the team in recent years. Now, in terms of the 2024 season and piggybacking on that year and doing well last year or intending to do well last year, they were just hit with a glut of injuries last season that really stalled them. Really, it was a major setback last year. I know injuries are a fact of life in the NFL, but there were just too many injuries for them to overcome, such as the injuries to Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I was in DC back in 2024 this summer, so it was the summer leading up, training camp leading up to his rookie year, and all the signs and the buzz coming out of training camp was just how exceptional a talent he was, and he certainly displayed that in his rookie year. When you have a quarterback like that, okay, Marcus Mariota, he's got his skills, but there's only so far that he can take the team, and of course when he's getting injured as well, it limits what you can do as a franchise. And like you said, I don't think people are going to hold that against Dan Quinn coming into this season, what happened last season. But, they've got to turn things around, and hopefully we're going to get a fully fit Jaden Daniels coming into London later this year. With Jaden Daniels as that seemingly franchise quarterback, I mean, the future does look bright for this Commanders franchise. It seems that as soon as the franchise was sold by Dan Snyder and the new ownership came in, there's a surge of positivity that came. It injected life back into the organization, and we had that great year in 2024. Okay, it fell off slightly last year, but it allows Dan Quinn a bit more time and flexibility to get things right this year going into 2026. And if they can, I mean, it's a big if, it's a brutal sport, but if they have a bit of luck on the injury front, then how far can you see this franchise going with some of the acquisitions that they've made in free agency this year, and of course with number 5 as the quarterback?
Right. Well, let's start with Jaden Daniels. I think in addition to the injuries that he incurred last year, something that happened, and it's a regular development in the NFL, defenses did catch up to him. They looked at the tape from his rookie season 2024, and in many ways they caught up to him. Now, quarterbacks have to respond to that. The great quarterbacks are able to overcome that. And I think this season will really be a great barometer on how Jaden Daniels does respond to that if he remains healthy. He is he looks to be a little brittle for an NFL quarterback. He is on the thin side. I know they've tried to bulk him up. If he can avoid the injuries, though, I think he'll do very well. I think he'll respond. He's a very, very smart quarterback, and he's got multiple skills. He's a great passer, great runner. He's got the mobility, which we saw all of that in his rookie season 2024. They have to avoid the injuries. What happened last year was quite probably an anomaly. You got to hope that's not going to happen again, but it was just a glut of injuries that they could not overcome. If they can remain healthy, if any team can remain healthy for that matter,
that's right,
then they can go a long way. For instance, last year they lost their 2 best pass rushers. They were without both of their pass rushers by like 6 to 7 games into the season, Deatrick Wise and Dorrance Armstrong. So their pass rush was anemic. The defense allowed the most yards in team history. Of course, they're playing 17 games right now, and the previous record was a 17-game season as well, 2023. So I believe they allowed like 6,600 yards. That's got to get better. The coaching has to get better. Quinn has to make better decisions out there. They brought back De'Ami Brown. I think he's a good, solid receiver. They got him in free agency. They re-signed Tim Settle, who had been with the team for his first 4 seasons. He further fortifies the defensive line. So on paper right now, I mean, Adam Peters is trying to make this team younger and faster. So on paper right now, you could say he has done that. I mean, his the most glaring weakness on the team, like I mentioned last year, the pass rush. They signed a really good edge rusher in Udofe Owe.
Yeah.
It's been in the league for about 5-6 seasons. He had a high of 10 sacks for the Ravens in 2024. So on paper, you could say they're heading in the right direction. I don't believe all of the write-ups thus far. The Commanders are number 1 in the league in free agent signings or whatever. You just have to see how it plays out. And something else they're going to avoid that happened last year, which really took a toll on the team, was Terry McLaurin's holdout. Okay? That really hurt Jaden Daniels in the preseason because he didn't have that chemistry with McLaurin, who was his number 1 receiver in 2024. That's not going to happen this year. They have McLaurin under contract. He is still a really good receiver. As you saw, I mean, he changes the complexion of a game when he comes back in. He draws those double teams as a receiver. So he's back. So that's a really, really good sign.
Yeah, McLaurin is one of my favorite players to watch in the league. I think he's an exceptional talent at wide receiver, and you're absolutely right. I think that did impact the team, but now they're going to have a full off season together, and then they go into the 2026 season, hopefully firing on all cylinders. And like you say, Odafe Owe brought in on a $100 million contract. It's up to that, and I think it's $60 million guaranteed as well, or $69 million guaranteed.
What do you do with all that
But
money?
I know. What are you going to do? Absolutely. Invest. I don't know in something in London. Who knows? What catches his eye when he's over here? But yeah, but Rashad White as well is brought in to help Krosky Merritt, I think, in the backfield, and White offers a little bit extra out there. And Van Jefferson has been brought in again, a more experienced wide receiver, I think, there to help the young Jaden Daniels out. So they do have the pieces. They're putting the pieces in place there. Where do you think they're with what you've seen and how they've built things so far during free agency? Where do you see them leaning towards when it comes to draft time, especially at the top end of the draft?
I think they're going to go defense in the draft. I think they're going to they've got to fortify that defense. I don't know which particular player they'd be leaning toward right now, but I think they could be a linebacker. They have to strengthen that linebacking core. Could be in the defensive backfield. I mean, it was just so pitiful last year. But I think just in general, they're going to go defense. That's my opinion. I think they've got some pretty good parts on offense, like you mentioned. And of course having McLaurin back there now, De'Ami Brown, and the left tackle, they re-signed him. Laramie Tunsil, they re-signed him. That's a really good sign as well. I mean, he is one of the best in the league. He's getting up there in age. I think he's 32 right now, but he showed last year that he can still be a really, really good left tackle. So I think they're okay on the offensive line, which is down in the trenches. That's very important. But I think they're going to go defense in the draft.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a very good draft for defensive ends as well. So even if they don't go in the first round, they can certainly grab somebody in the second or mid rounds, and just give Dan Quinn those tools to work with. They brought in Amik Robertson as well, the cornerback, just to add that depth. I think it was much needed depth in the secondary, especially in the cornerback position for the Commanders there. Let's just, you said that you're in Maryland. Let's just head a little bit down the road to the Baltimore Ravens, because a huge talking point in the NFL these past 10 days has been that of Max Crosby. Mike, in your times covering the sport, have you ever known anything like this chaos that's surrounded the failed Max Crosby trade to the Ravens?
I think I've seen that one or two other times where he failed a physical, or a player failed a physical, but I guess that's just a fact of life in the NFL. I know the Ravens are going through a tumultuous time right now. I don't know how well they're going to do without Harbaugh. They have been a very, very solid organization over the years. With Harbaugh, with their previous coaches, Brian Billick, and so they have, in their very short era of existence, they have won 2 Super Bowls. So you really have to credit them. I have not really admired the Ravens that much over the years, for the fact that they've drawn a lot of the fans from the Redskins, now Commanders. So, and in fact, Harbaugh mentioned that years ago. He said, "Oh, our goal is to get those fans from the DC area. We want to make them Ravens fans." So, but a lot of the younger fans, at least where I live in my area, I know have become Ravens fans. A lot of my daughter's high school classmates, they were rooting for the Ravens. That's who they've grown up with. The perennial winning team like the Ravens.
That's right. How dare they, Mike? They got such a historical franchise there in the pro football in Washington. You've written a book about Joe Gibbs, and I think a lot of fans of Washington Pro Football, Washington over here, so fans of the Commanders as they are now, probably would have their fandom would have started back in the 80s when it was a very much a cult following over here at the NFL. But during that time, there was that electric Washington Redskins team, the 2 Super Bowls in that decade that they won as well. And, of course, Joe Gibbs, who was, a Pro Football Hall of Fame head coach with the Redskins. And it really was a special time, wasn't it? A special era for Washington football.
Well, that was the major glory era of the team. I mean, the early years of the team, that was a glory era too. The Sammy Baugh days, 1937 through 45, they won 2 NFL championships then. But the era that many people really remember, is that Joe Gibbs era. I mean, he's such a iconic figure in team history, having won 3 Super Bowls. They actually went to 4. They lost to the Raiders in one of them, but they were kind of a mediocre team under Jack Pardee. They never made the playoffs. So Pardee had succeeded George Allen. Then when Gibbs took over in '81, he just turned them around. 0-5 start. Gibbs thought he was going to be fired. Then they ended up winning 8 of their last 11 games. They finished 8-8 that season, and from there, it just took off. They won a Super Bowl the next year, beating the Dolphins Super Bowl 17. Then the Doug Williams game, Super Bowl 22, and then Mark Richman quarterbacking them to a win in Super Bowl 26. But in between all of those, they were a perennial power. I mean, they were going to the playoffs almost year after year. So it was just a fabulous time to be a Redskins fan. And those that are old enough today to remember that era, I mean, we look back on it and say we want another glory era for this team. It's been so long. But other teams have waited longer. I mean, you have to consider, like, the New York Jets. I mean, they've won 1 Super Bowl in their history, the Joe Namath victory in Super Bowl III. What have they done since then? So we can't feel totally sorry for ourselves. There are other teams that have been much worse off.
They're teams that have never been there. I mean, look at the Detroit Lions and look how close they came just a couple of years ago in the NFC title game, and then they blew it. And after that, Dan Quinn said, you don't know if that opportunity is going to come around again. They've struggled ever since. They were knocked out in the first round of the playoffs back in 2024, so the season following that, and of course they didn't even make the playoffs this past season. So it's a tough sport, but that's why we love it. And parity is king, or seemingly in the NFL. And Mike, I mean, we just can't wait for the Washington Commanders to be coming over here to London later this year. So you and I will hook up again in due course, closer to the time. We'll know what the matchup is later this year, and your fantastic encyclopedia will be out then as well. But for people watching and listening to the podcast now, where can they follow you, and remind us of your fantastic work? And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see some of the images of these books that Mike has had published about the Washington Commanders.
Sure. So my website is MikeRichmanJournalist.com. That's where people could go to learn about me, to see all of the books that I've written, to read my blogs, to learn about my appearances. So that's my website. Facebook page is Mike Richman. X is at MSR_journalist. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram. LinkedIn under Mike Richman, and Instagram under Mike Richman. So those are all my social media pages. And I'm really, really going to be putting a lot of time into my social media in the coming months, and then this coming season with the Washington Pro Football Encyclopedia coming out. I'm very, very excited about the release of this book, and I'm confident it's much better than the Redskins Encyclopedia that I published in 2007. Much more information, of course, covering the last 2 decades of the team, and I went back and I elaborated on the origin of the team's name and things like that. And there are great sidebars in there, so I hope that, and I know many people will enjoy it.
Exciting times all around, and look, can't wait for that book to come out, the encyclopedia, and we can't wait to get you back on the Transatlantic Sports Show as well. So thanks, Mike, for joining us. Now enjoy the off season, and then training camp's going to be here before you know it, Mike, and then we're back into full flow.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it always comes fast. I always think when the regular season or the playoffs end, then we have this huge layoff until the NFL regular season starts. But the NFL they've marketed it really well. They've become like a year-round sporting attraction, because the NFL Combine, which was last month, I mean, that's their first big event of the year. That's sort of like their kickoff. Then free agency, and then the draft, and mini camps and training camp. So the NFL has done really well in marketing that league.
and now a plethora of international games as well. We'll get your thoughts on that next time you're with us. But interesting, isn't it? As we have the World Cup, we're less than 100 days to the World Cup heading to your country in Mexico and Canada. You're going to be showcasing global football. The NFL is now increasing its global outreach, going as far as Australia and, of course, over to Germany. Those games in Germany are special, as well as the London ones. We've got Paris this year, Madrid. Of course, the Commanders know Madrid well, having played at the Bernabeu last year. But there we are. You've got Infantino and Trump, uniting together to bring the FIFA World Cup to your country. But the NFL is reaching out and infiltrating these world-famous soccer football venues as well. But it's great. We absolutely love it.
Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see at some point if there's another startup league in Europe, like a full-blown league, such as the World League of American Football. It'd be interesting to see because the NFL is expanding like that and reaching out. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there is another.
Yeah,
league.
Look at some of the names, the great names that were success stories from that. It's we've you just had somebody going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, or they will be going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame later this year. The kicker from the Colts and the Patriots, and there's so many great. Kurt Warner, for example, he is the greatest success story, I think, to come from NFL Europe. Right? He played for Amsterdam, and
okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and the kicker you're referring to is Vinatieri, right?
That's it. That's the one. Yes, his name escaped me for whatever reason. But thank you, Mike, for bringing him up. There we are.
Field goal, I believe, in one of the Super Bowls in the early 2000s.
That's the one. That's the one. He's going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the launchpad for his career was NFL Europe. So yeah, thanks, Mike. Look, pleasure having you on with us. People listening and watching, check out his great work. Read his books, get those books, and then just look forward to the encyclopedia coming out later this year. And as I mentioned, we'll get Mike back on the show a little bit closer to this season and that matchup between the Commanders and whoever at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you, Anthony. Enjoyed it.
There goes my thanks to Mike Richman. Oh, so insightful. Hopefully you've taken away a lot more than you anticipated from Mike. The guy knows, what he doesn't know about the Washington Commanders isn't worth knowing, right? With all that information, fear not, between now and the Washington Commanders coming over to London, we'll get Mike on again, and we'll just kind of, recap on where we are with the Commanders, talk about his encyclopedia. It'll be out by the time he joins us again, and get excited about the Commanders coming over to London. It is exciting that we've got such a storied franchise. And the next time he comes on, we will know who their opponents are going to be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well. So, exciting it's always exciting times being an NFL fan over here in the UK. We've got 3 more games coming later this year. We got more games throughout Europe, the one in Paris, the one in Munich, and of course, the other one in Madrid. So we're going to be focusing on a few of our episodes, just locking in on some of those teams that are dedicating their home games to the international series over here in Europe. So if you're going to be going to or planning to go to one of those games across Europe, you'll be able to learn a little bit more about those clubs. But also on the Transatlantic Sports Show, follow us at TASS_UK on social media. That's YouTube, Instagram, and X for your information. We're becoming a lot more proactive on Instagram as well. I'm going to bring you up to speed on some of the news across the league, across MLB as well. We're just going to celebrate American sports, which is why you're here, and I hopefully can provide you with a bit of insight that you won't be able to get anywhere else, which is why we're here on the Transatlantic Sports Show. So thank you so much for listening. Please tell your friends about us. We are going to be here. We're going to become more consistent. Like I said at the top of the show, I do apologize that we kind of fell off the radar in recent months, but that is because we've just been so busy. We've been at the Super Bowl, covering the NFL Germany game. I think that was probably the last program episode that you heard us from, but with me presenting on BBC 5 Live, the NFL coverage as well, it's just been so busy, and finding the time to give you the quality that you deserve here as a podcast listener or viewer, and you want that information, you want that good quality information as well on your NFL, MLB, etc. So that's why I'm here. That's what we're going to provide you for. So please hit like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week with more NFL content, and perhaps maybe have a little look at the MLB season, which is getting underway very, very soon. Opening day is upon us. But until next time,